What's up, YouTube? I wanted to do a more serious video on Tom DeLonge and the science that he has come forward with so far and talked about, and my hopes for that in the future.
I mean, there's a piece of metal from a crash that I've seen, and I've seen the science on it, and it's atomically aligned, and it's layered in like 80 layers within just a few microns of purities of metal that aren't even in our solar system. And they think it needs to be made in an area where there's no gravity. So number one, it has to be made in space. Number two, even if we were to create a machine that can potentially do some of this stuff, 3D printing layers of different metals of obscene purities, it would cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't even have that.
Why do they think it was made without gravity?
Because I think it's the atomic structure. So what happens is when you radiate it with terahertz, it loses mass. Something weird. It resonates some kind of harmonic, and then it gets lighter. And if you hit it with enough terahertz, it'll float. So we're going to be showing people this stuff. We're going to be bringing out the hardware, some of the hardware. We're going to be bringing out implants. We're going to be bringing out videos. We're going to be bringing out some other stuff.
So you're going to be showing people this actual physical piece of metal that was constructed in a zero gravity environment in space, and if you hit it with enough energy, it becomes weightless.
No, I wouldn't say weightless. I don't know if we can make enough energy to do that, but yes, that is our plan. And show the experiment. So
okay, well, if you can't give it enough energy to make it weightless, can you give it enough energy to reduce the mass?
Yes.
So it weighs less?
Yes.
And you can prove this?
Yeah. Warping the space-time continuum around the object. So you shoot, what you can do is you can shoot an electron over it while it's not being radiated.
A single electron?
And you collect it and time that. And
how do you shoot a single electron?
Fuck if I know. I'm not a physicist. It's crazy. So what happens is you shoot this electron, and you know how fast it is to travel over this piece of metal. Then you radiate it with terahertz. And then
what does that mean? Radiate it with terahertz.
You're electrifying and charging the piece of material.
Do you know what's a terahertz?
It's a high frequency wave. I don't want to pretend I know that much about it. I just know that the earlier tests were with radio waves like RF, and they need to do terahertz. So I don't know much more than that.
So by
shooting terahertz at it, the piece of metal can lose mass, and then when you shoot an electron over it, it'll be a different time than the other one when it's not turned on. Does that make sense?
No. All right, dude. Well, that's a very ambitious project, and let us know when you're ready to go to the moon or Mars or wherever the fuck you're going to go.
Uranus?
Yeah, you can go to Uranus, all those places.
All right.
And I hope it's all real. I'm excited.
Cool. Thanks,
if it's true. Thanks for having me. Oh, thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah,
appreciate
you so
it, man.
much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
So, a nano-layered crystalline metal that has to be fabricated in space and levitates when you radiate it with terahertz? Okay, first off, terahertz are below infrared and above microwave, and there is actually a technology whereby you can float metal objects using lasers. However, it uses gigahertz and not terahertz. I learned about Project Skyvault from Dr. Paul Laviolette's 2008 book on secrets of anti-gravity propulsion. Here's a video of that technology in action.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
The laser beam is made up of infrared light. As the beam pulses, it strips air molecules of their electrons, creating an explosive plasma that propels the craft from below.
Also, if you look up crystal growth in space, you will find plenty of information and documentation on how crystals grown in microgravity are able to grow larger and more organized than those grown on Earth. NASA has been studying this for a long time, and I remember hearing them mention it in one of their IMAX films and claiming that they were doing it in the hopes of developing better pharmaceuticals. I remember laughing and thinking that explanation wasn't really why NASA was studying crystal growth in microgravity at all. Pharmaceuticals. They were actually doing classified materials science research into 3 very specific types of materials, one of which is very similar to the metal that Tom describes, although I'm very curious as to why Tom seems unaware of what these materials are called, or at least unwilling to share their names or any real information about them with the public. So I will spare you all that wait. Metamaterials are materials which can have a negative index of refraction and are one of the key elements used for producing invisibility cloaks and cloaking devices. Got that? Stealth aircraft are painted with special radar-absorbent paint which uses a metamaterial known as barium titanate. And yes, that was classified. Secondly, we have quasicrystals, which, much like metamaterials, have very special photonic properties, such as the ability to bend fiber optic signals at 90-degree angles without losing signal quality. The third type of materials are called photonic band gap materials, which are used to isolate and filter off different frequencies of light. By using a combination of quasicrystals, metamaterials, and photonic band gap materials, one could feasibly construct the photonic computer circuits required to build the ultimate quantum computer, invisibility cloaks, etc. Again, I'm not sure why Tom can't talk about this, or why he hasn't learned about it from his high-level inside sources yet. I mean, I talked about all of this stuff nearly a decade ago in a video that I made in response to the 2008 History Channel UFO Files episode on alien engineering. Tom, on the other hand, along with the mainstream media, has yet to tell us anything of scientific interest or value. I honestly can't wait to analyze these floating metal experiments he plans to come out with and verify exactly what is causing it. Because floating things with lasers is old news, and it's not anti-gravity, and it's not warp drive. By the way, I no longer believe in anti-gravity in that sense of the word. I have accepted Einstein and GR, and I'm now, much like skunkworks researchers today, putting my time and research into figuring out how to build a low-level warp drive, which is kind of what Tom is saying he wants to hear all of a sudden with these former skunkworks guys. Although Tom is talking about electrons here, when he should be talking about positrons, or negative energy states, as required by the Alcubierre warp drive theory that I talked about in my last video, and told everyone to Google Dirac hole theory. You can observe for yourselves what classified scientific information really looks like. It looks like any other advanced physics, only nobody showed you how to apply it or how to engineer it. And that's the classified part, where intellectual property comes into play. Intellectual property is the reason why I have trouble believing that a former director at skunkworks is suddenly going to jump ship and start handing out advanced weapons secrets to the public and world at large. I'm very interested in hearing what Steve Justice has to say for himself, and this experiment with the floating metal that they intend to show us as proof. Stay tuned, more to come.
Interrogated for 2 days straight, saying, we need to know who the fuck you are, you know shit you shouldn't know, and...
So what specifically should you not have known?
The book, what's in the book, everything I've been telling you today.
What set them off though? Like, what was the thing that you said that you should not have known?
In my book, it is my belief that we have an incredible, we've made incredible strides creating assets to deal with this stuff. That's my belief, and I'm not speaking for my company.
Okay, so some sort of an international collaboration to deal with the threat of alien life, and that was enough that they pulled you aside and wouldn't let you go for 2 days and just interrogated you.
So it was it was an interrogation, but it was a pretty heavy debriefing of how I got to where I was, and it's not like they didn't let me go home. This took place at a hotel near my home.
But they made you sit down and talk to them.
Oh fuck yeah! There was 6 of them, I think 6.
And so they let you leave and go to sleep and then come back, get something to eat, and
came back, spent another 8 hours, because I wasn't rogue. I wasn't like trying to hide anything. I was trying to explain to them.
How did you have all this free time though?
What do you mean?
I mean, like if somebody said, "Hey, we're gonna have you in a room. We're gonna talk to you for 2 days," I'm like, dude, I don't have 2 days.
Well, that's maybe you don't. I mean, there's a piece of metal answer, so I had to figure out a language to talk to these guys.
Did you ever think maybe this guy's bullshitting you, or he's a crazy person?
No, fuck no.
No,
I'll tell you. That's why you got to hear the whole story.
Okay.
So.